Hi, I'm Hal Roberts. This is Bridge City News. Here's some of the top stories we've been following. An Israeli woman who has Canadian parents was confirmed killed following the deadly terrorist attack by Hamas in Israel. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre is calling on the Trudeau government to criminalize the Iranian government, which he says is funding Hamas. And we hear from three-time Stanley Cup champion Brent Seabrook, who will be honored at the Lethbridge Hurricanes Wall of Honor next year.
Your nation. Your province. Your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News with Hal Roberts.
Thanks so much for joining us. Foreign Affairs Minister Melanie Joly has confirmed that an Israeli woman with Canadian parents has died. She says the two other Canadians are also still missing. Tiferet Lapido is being described as a brilliant and beautiful young woman. She was attending the Supernova dance party earlier this month near the Gaza Strip when she was killed. Lapido is the sixth with Canadian ties to have been killed following the brutal attacks by Hamas. Officials say 260 people died or have gone missing since the festival. Minister Joly says flights left Tel Aviv on Tuesday to get more Canadian citizens, permanent residents, and families out of the country. Joly is encouraging those wanting to leave from Lebanon to go while commercial flights are still available. She says so far 1,300 Canadians have been airlifted out of Israel. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says his government is doing everything in its power to evacuate Canadians quickly and safely out of the Middle East.
The Minister of National Defence is working tirelessly to ensure that CAF evacuation flights are getting as many Canadians out of the region as possible, and the Minister of International Development is leading conversations with his international counterparts and with aid organizations, making sure essential support is getting to affected people. Canada has committed an initial $10 million in humanitarian assistance to provide essentials like food, water, emergency medical aid, and protection assistance to those affected by the crisis in Gaza, the West Bank, and Israel.
Federal Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre says the terrorist group Hamas must be stopped. He's calling on the federal government to criminalize the Iranian government, which he says is funding the terrorist organization. He says far too many lives have been lost at the hands of Hamas.
Countless of those lives have been lost or put in danger as a direct result of the sadistic attacks of Hamas. And that was the purpose of those attacks, to exact maximum damage on both Israelis and Palestinians and thwart any attempt for peace. We know that the regime in Iran was behind these attacks, and we know that the most powerful organizer of terrorism in the world is the IRGC, which operates legally in Canada today. Will the government accept the Conservative common sense bill to criminalize the IRGC in Canada today?
This is the first time we are all present in this House since these horrific terrorist attacks by Hamas on the State of Israel and the Israeli people. So I would like to begin by being very clear in English this time. Canada stands with the State of Israel and with the Israeli people. Israel can count on Canada's support. Canada condemns unequivocally Hamas's terrorist attacks, and we call for the immediate release of all hostages.
Intense bombing by Israel continues in Gaza. The Israeli government has told civilians in the north to seek shelter as the ground offensive is about to begin. There are reports that more than 2,800 people have died from the Israeli attacks in Gaza, with a third of them being children. More than 1,400 were killed in Israel following the attack by the terrorist group Hamas. There are reports that more than 7,600 others were also injured, and close to 1 million people have been displaced since the war with Israel and Hamas began. Iran's foreign minister says pro-Iranian groups in the region could act preemptively against Israel. There are reports that the United States is preparing to send 2,000 non-combat troops to support Israel. U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken says U.S. President Joe Biden is also planning to head to Israel fairly soon.
The President will reaffirm the United States' solidarity with Israel and our ironclad commitment to its security. President Biden will again make clear, as he's done unequivocally since Hamas's slaughter of more than 1,400 people, including at least 30 Americans, that Israel has the right and indeed the duty to defend its people from Hamas and other terrorists and to prevent future attacks. The President will hear from Israel what it needs to defend its people as we continue to work with Congress to meet those needs. Second, President Biden will underscore our crystal clear message to any actor, state or non-state, trying to take advantage of this crisis to attack Israel. Don't. To that end, he's deployed 2 aircraft carrier groups and other military assets to the region.
There's a new bill being discussed in Parliament to prevent the Trudeau government from expanding MAID, or medical assistance in dying, to include those who battle mental illness. David Goretzky is with the Evangelical Fellowship of Canada. He says, according to a recent poll that they ran, the majority of Canadians do not want to see the MAID bill expanded.
We discovered that well into 60% of Canadians agree that even if MAID for mental illness were to be made available, it should be only as a very last resort after all therapeutic options have been exhausted. In Netherlands, for example, where euthanasia is also legal, a physician's not able to provide euthanasia for a patient who requests this until they are convinced that they have exhausted all of the mental health therapies. That is not the case in the Canadian situation.
Make sure you catch the full interview with David Goretzky from EFC and BCN's Jeanette Rocher coming up in the second half of our program. The idea of universal basic income was discussed by parliamentarians on Tuesday. Winnipeg Centre NDP MP Leah Gazan says Bill S-233 needs to be passed in order to help so many Canadians get out of poverty, including many in our First Nations communities.
This is something that was called for in the National Inquiry into Murdered and Missing Indigenous Women and Girls Call for Justice 4.5 to provide a guaranteed livable basic income for Indigenous peoples and all other Canadians in the country. And although our bill expands further to that to include anyone over the age of 18 currently residing in Canada, it's beyond time that we change income programs in this country so that they're livable and expand them out for those who are falling through the cracks, including many individuals with complex mental health and trauma who often find themselves unhoused on the streets.
Well, we saw some periods of rain in many parts of southwestern Alberta earlier today, and a little bit cooler as well. Jeanette Rocher is here now with a full look at the short-term forecast. Jeanette, it appears as though moisture may be short-lived.
Oh, so short-lived. You're right, Hal. It's going to leave as quickly as it arrived, and what a lot of rain we got, too. We saw 5 to 10 millimeters of rain earlier today, wind gusts up to 80 kilometers per hour. There are still a few leaves on the trees, though. I checked. Maybe after tomorrow, though, not so much, because we are expecting another 70 kilometer per hour winds on Wednesday, high of 19 degrees. We're seeing increasing clouds tomorrow as well, but no rain. Good news is on Thursday and Friday, it's going to feel like summertime all over again, and I'll be back later in the show to let you know all about it.
Great. Thanks so much, Jeanette. More money will be going to bring in more qualified nurses to Alberta. The province announced that $11 million will go toward nurse bridging programs to help train internationally educated nurses. Advanced Education Minister Rajan Sani made the announcement at the University of Lethbridge. She said these nurses will now have access to an additional 1,221 spaces at post-secondary institutions so they can complete the programs they need for certification here in Alberta.
This includes 848 new seats for registered nurses and 373 new seats for licensed practical nurses at 9 post-secondary institutions across the province. These new seats are being created over 3 years to help nurses who are trained in other countries become licensed to work and live here in Alberta. This is long, long overdue, and I'm so pleased to be making this announcement today.
Dr. John Doan, the Dean of the Faculty of Health Sciences at the U of L, says funding for nurses has even helped his own family in the past.
My mother was a long-time registered nurse and nursing instructor who did a pivotal part of her training in Alberta's post-secondary system 65 years ago, including clinical experiences right here in Lethbridge and community health delivery with the Blood Tribe. That educational experience in Alberta post-secondary had a profound effect on my mother's career. It also affected thousands of families around our small town. My mom was a nursing instructor in obstetrics who spent nearly 50 years guiding students, helping patients and their loved ones, and changing many lives.
Here in our city in Lethbridge, $2.4 million and 100 seats will go to the University of Lethbridge and Lethbridge College. The college will also be partnering with Bow Valley College to provide an additional 108 seats. The province also announced a funding boost of $40 million to small and medium business owners. The investment will be used to help those business owners find new ways to lower emissions, reduce energy costs, and to help grow the economy. Environment and Protected Areas Minister Rebecca Schultz says many business owners are finding it difficult to improve energy efficiency and lower their energy costs.
This work is led by Emissions Reduction Alberta. It's an open competition, so any small or medium-sized business can apply. We're also opening it up to any Indigenous business or organization as well. With $40 million available, we want the best and the most creative ideas. They can be scale-up projects, pilot projects, demonstrations, a brand new first-of-its-kind innovation. This is all about helping businesses take the next steps in energy efficiency and heating, digital solutions, methane emissions reduction, and a whole lot more.
The Lethbridge Encampment Response Team presented an update to City Council on Tuesday afternoon on the encampment issue here in our region. There's been a slight increase in the number of encampment reports made to the city. Eric Foster, an encampment support specialist with the city, says they're seeing many of the calls coming from the north side of Lethbridge.
It includes encampments as well as debris. And some of the correlation that we've noticed is that actually seems to be resolving around donation bins. So particularly around like the north side Walmart, that area, a lot of that debris is coming as a result of those bins. The low level of entrenchment continues despite the increase in reports. We are noticing that the compliance level is slowing a little, slightly due to the cooler temperatures.
From September the 11th through October 13th, there have been 130 encampment-related calls made to the city. So far this year, there have been 377 calls. The downtown BRZ is hoping to collaborate with the city to implement a cross-functional task force to help address crime here in Lethbridge. Now, the motion was brought up during City Council on Tuesday as the BRZ expressed concerns that crime continues to increase in the downtown core. Acting Mayor John Middleton Hope says the task force to start will only focus on one area of the city.
Displacement is a byproduct of action. Inaction also creates additional problems. So to start, it is very much focused on the downtown core. However, I anticipate that it will expand as more partners participate in this process.
The motion will be brought back before Council on December the 12th. A woman being held in an RCMP jail in the Piikani Nation says she was sexually assaulted by one of the guards. Police say the incident allegedly occurred in the early morning hours on October the 13th. The investigation, which included a review of the cell block recording, resulted in charges being laid against a Corps of Commissioner Guard. 32-year-old Charles Provost, a resident of Brockett, has been removed from his position as guard and faces a count of sexual assault and one count of breach of trust. He was released from custody and will appear in court on November the 23rd. Well, the weather may not look like it just yet, but it'll soon be beginning to look a lot like Christmas around southern Alberta. A one-of-a-kind Christmas holiday lights spectacular is making its way to Lethbridge for the very first time November 23rd through December 31st at the Agri-Food Hub and Trade Centre. Glow Lethbridge is an interactive holiday event featuring millions of lights and photo opportunities around each and every corner of the newly built facility. Lethbridge and District CEO Mike Warkentin gives us a glimpse of what attendees can expect to see.
Glow is a truly unique experience, and so the nice thing about it is you're cozy and warm inside the confines of this building, but you get to experience all the magic of the holiday seasons. It's millions of twinkling lights. It is an experience around the world. You get to journey to some of the world's most iconic landmarks throughout 6 different countries. They're all going to be right here in the Agri-Food Hub and Trade Centre here in southern Alberta, and we look forward to welcoming the greater southern Alberta community to celebrate their holiday season here with us.
Looks very cool. Tickets go on sale on November the 1st, and more information about ticket pricing can be found on their website. Former Lethbridge Hurricanes player and 3-time Stanley Cup champions Brent Seabrook is set to become the newest inductee into the Hurricanes Wall of Honor in January at the NMAC Centre. He played 4 seasons with the Canes from 2001 to 2005. He'll become the 11th former player with the team to receive that distinction. Seabrook chatted with members of the Lethbridge media on Tuesday about the momentous honor. BCN's Micah Quinn has the details.
It's a huge honor. A lot of great players that have played in Lethbridge and come through the organization, so very excited.
Brent Seabrook will be inducted into the player category of the Lethbridge Hurricanes Wall of Honor on January 26th of next year. He will also be the headliner guest for the 2024 Celebrity Dinner the following evening. After his time in the WHL, he was drafted by the Chicago Blackhawks and went on to win 3 Stanley Cup championships with the club until he retired in 2021.
I think as a hockey player, I really took out of those championship seasons was the grind of the year. It was the grind of the year, getting there, getting into the playoffs, the grind of the first round, second round, third round, fourth round, getting it all together. Some of the greatest moments I had is, I think, just throughout the grind and being together and pulling that same rope and going out there and trying to win a game.
The former NHLer also won gold with Team Canada at the 2010 Winter Olympic Games in Vancouver as Sidney Crosby scored the golden goal in overtime against the United States.
And then literally I was talking yesterday about it, and the next day we were fighting each other again, so I remember we won, we celebrated, we went into Vancouver and had a party. And the next morning, I think it was like 8 or 9 in the morning, we were bussing down to all the Blackhawks players that were at the Olympics were taking a bus down across the line, and we jumped on a plane and flew to New York to play the next night.
For Bridge City News, I'm Micah Quinn.
What an incredible career. Wow. Liberty University students served with Samaritan's Purse and Edward Graham recently to help homeowners who were devastated by Hurricane Idalia. 4 people died, and damage estimates are between $2.2 and $5 billion following the storm. Idalia was the most powerful hurricane to hit Florida's Big Bend region since the 1896 Cedar Keys hurricane. We have more now in this report.
So today I've been out here with LUCIN in Taylor County, Florida, where a hurricane had come through here recently and devastated homes. And these are Liberty students, are part of a program where they send their actual students during the school year throughout different disasters in the U.S. Samaritan's Purse and Liberty University go way back. They're all about educating and training champions for Christ. They're bold for the gospel, they're unashamed, and that's why we love the school.
This is what makes being a college president fun. When ministry is combined, the kingdom just grows. I'm so incredibly proud of our students, excited that they've chosen to come here and do what God's called them to do.
And this homeowner, she was overwhelmed just what she had to do. And there's so much damage, I just believe it's beyond repair. She needs a new home. I told her that Samaritan's Purse, if she would let us, we'll gift her a new mobile home. This is a gift from God, and I want to know that God has not forsaken her and that God loves her. And that's why we're here, that's why the volunteers are here. Simple acts of service in the name of Jesus Christ can change and pierce hearts, broken hearts.
It's a cool opportunity to take what the enemy meant for evil and just use it for good and get out here and serve. It goes so far beyond just the work, but it's also those connections being made. It's a really cool opportunity to say, hey, you don't have to search anymore. We have the answer, and his name is Jesus.
Yeah. Amen. We have the equipment, we have the resources, we need volunteers. That's why Samaritan's Purse and Liberty, we often partner. For the students, it's a great lesson. It's always be ready to give a reason for the hope inside you in the name of Jesus.
It's great to see the way they're helping out. Wow. Well, we had a bit of moisture again here in southwestern Alberta today. We certainly have been needing the rain, but will it continue? A complete look at the weather pictures on deck. Well, we had lots of clouds and showers in Lethbridge once again, which has been quite refreshing lately. Jeanette Rocher is now with all of the weather details. Jeanette, as much as we appreciate the moisture here in southwestern Alberta, the rain clouds may be moving on fairly soon.
Yes, they should be, Hal. We had that downpour earlier today, and now it has moved on into tomorrow. We're looking at increased clouds. No rain, though, for Wednesday. 19 degrees for a high. And then later on this week, before the weekend, we're going to be seeing some rock star weather. Look at that. It's like second summer already. 23 degrees on Thursday with mainly sunny skies, clear skies as well on Friday, high of 24 degrees. And then it's like the seasons are suddenly going to change on the weekend there. A high of only 10 degrees on Saturday with mainly cloudy skies. We're looking at a high of 11 on Sunday, and then down to only the single digit there of 7 degrees on Monday with mainly cloudy skies to end out that 7-day forecast. So the average high for this time of year, 14 degrees for the most part. We're sticking above that until we get to the weekend. That is average low for this time of year, 0. 26 was our high temperature back in 1963. In 1992, we had the chilliest, which was -10. The sun rose this morning at 7:56 a.m. We're looking at a sunset tonight at 6:37. That is 6:37 p.m. We're looking at 10 hours and 41 minutes of daylight, 4 minutes shorter than yesterday. On the west coast, looking at Victoria, seeing showers happening there. 14 degrees for a high, 14 as well in Vancouver, looking at 10 millimeters of rain though. 20k winds, 50k though when you're in the Georgia Strait there along that strait. 18 degrees for a high in Edmonton tomorrow with a mix of sun and cloud. Calgary looking at mainly cloudy skies, high of 16 there. As we get to the rest of the prairies, we are seeing mostly cloudy skies as well in many of these areas. 13 for a high in Saskatoon, Regina, looking at 30 to 50k winds. With a high of 13, 16 for a high in Winnipeg, not bad at all. Winnipeg could see some showers in the morning and then mix of sun and cloud by the afternoon, also 20 to 40k winds there. Toronto seeing a high of 17 degrees, 15 for Ottawa, and high of 16 degrees in Montreal with partly cloudy skies in all of those areas. All of those cities also seeing some overnight fog, which will dissipate by the morning. Same thing for the Atlantic coast here. High of 14 degrees in Fredericton. Same thing for Halifax. Halifax looking at mainly sunny skies, though. Charlottetown looking at a high of 12 degrees, 30% chance of showers, though. High of 9 in St. John's. Mix of sun and cloud, but 20 to 40k winds there. So there you have it. That is your forecast.
Inflation slipped in September after rising in the summer. Statistics Canada says the annual inflation rate slowed to 3.8% last month. That is down from 4% in August. StatCan says prices for a range of goods and services increased more slowly, including durable goods and grocery prices. The cost of purchasing food was up 5.8% in September on an annual basis. That compares with a year-over-year increase of 6.9% in August. The agency says the main upward inflationary pressures were mortgage interest costs, rent, food purchased from restaurants, gas, and electricity. The latest report comes a week before the Bank of Canada's next interest rate announcement. The chairman of Ford Motors is calling for an end to the auto workers' strike. He warns that the company's future is on the line. The United Auto Workers has been on a month-long strike since walking out last week at Ford's most profitable plant in Louisville, Kentucky. Company Chair Bill Ford says the strike could cost the company the ability to invest in the future. He says high labor costs could limit spending to develop new vehicles and invest in factories. Clinical trials are underway in the United States on a drug to prevent pneumonia. It is one of the leading causes of hospitalization and death. The vaccine uses a toxin produced by the pneumonia bacterium to teach the human body how to fight it. Lead researcher for the project, Dr. Rodney Tweeten, says, however, that the vaccine is years away from being made available. Now, here's a look at today's markets. The TSX was up 72 points on the day to finish at 19,692. The Dow was up 13 points to 33,997. The S&P 500 was down just under a point today to 4373, and the Nasdaq was up 34 points to 13,533. West Texas Intermediate Oil was up 88 cents to 87.54 U.S. per barrel. Natural gas was down 4 cents to 307 U.S. Gold was up 304 on the day to 1923.24 U.S. an ounce, and silver was up 19 cents to 22.80 U.S. an ounce. Feed wheat is at $9.66 per bushel, barley's at $7.51, canola's at $16.37, and corn is at $8.75 per bushel. Live cattle were up 30 cents to $185.50. Feeder cattle were up 48 cents to $248.80. And lean hogs December contract was down 75 cents to $67.55. The Canadian dollar was down slightly over the past 24 hours to 73.27 U.S. Recapping one of our top stories, Foreign Affairs Minister Melanie Joly has confirmed that an Israeli woman with Canadian parents has died. She says the 2 other Canadians are also still missing. Tiferet Lapido was attending the Supernova dance party earlier this month near the Gaza Strip. Lapido is the 6th with Canadian ties to have been killed following the brutal attack by Hamas. Officials say 260 were killed or went missing from the festival. Minister Joly says so far 1,300 Canadians have been airlifted out of Israel. Parliament will soon be voting on whether to include adding mental illness to MAID, or medical assistance in dying. There are many who take issue with that potential changes, including David Goretzky, the CEO of Evangelical Fellowship Canada, who shares his concerns with BCN's Jeanette Rocher shortly. When you see news happening in your community, be sure to drop us an email at info@bridgecitynews.ca. And if you missed any of today's local stories, visit our website, bridgecitynews.ca.
Here's today's Bridge City News community calendar. This Halloween, grab a friend and join Trick or Eat Lethbridge. This event is a great opportunity to help out the Interfaith Food Bank. Simply register at Trick or Eat Lethbridge Facebook page and go door to door on the assigned route on October 31st and collect non-perishable food items. It's fun for a cause. Celebrate Recovery is a Christ-centered recovery program for any hurt, hang-up, and habit. This group meets Friday nights at Park Meadows Baptist Church. The evening begins at 7 p.m. with a large group session, followed by small groups at 8 with coffee and dessert at 9. For more information, visit celebraterecovery.ca or call Park Meadows Church office at 403-327-4422. And that's today's Bridge City News community calendar.
Parliament will be voting tomorrow on an important bill that could affect the lives of Canadians, particularly those suffering with mental illness. The rapid expansion of MAID, which stands for Medical Assistance in Dying, is raising some concerns, particularly since the bill is attempting to expand the eligibility of assisted dying to those who qualify solely based on mental illness. But there is another bill, Bill C-314, which seeks to remove the mental illness eligibility to qualify for MAID. My next guest is hoping this bill passes tomorrow and is here to break it down. David Goretzky is the president and CEO of the Evangelical Fellowship of Canada. He joins me now from Ottawa. David, welcome back to Bridge City News. So great to have you here once again with us.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Okay, so first of all, for any viewers who may be unfamiliar with your organization, EFC, what can you maybe briefly tell us about it? What's it all about?
Sure. Well, the Evangelical Fellowship of Canada is the National Association of Evangelical Denominations, post-secondary Christian schools, organizations, and congregations. And we represent something around 2 million Canadians, evangelical Canadians from coast to coast.
Interesting. Okay, now the Evangelical Fellowship of Canada has for many years been tackling issues of faith in Canada, right? Including this MAID bill, this medical assistance in dying, commonly referred to as assisted suicide or euthanasia. So why, David, is this bill at the forefront of your focus right now?
Well, as your viewers will know, that medical assistance in dying or euthanasia is already legal in Canada and has been for a number of years. A couple years ago, a bill was passed that would now extend medical assistance in dying to people with mental illness alone with no other conditions. And that was supposed to take place in March 2023, open up to March 2023. There was a delay to that and an extra year given to kind of prepare the system for that new regime. And so March 2024 is when this is supposed to all take effect. So it's already law. It's already to take effect. But this bill that's before Parliament right now, Bill C-314, it's a private member's bill. And if this bill were passed by Parliament, then the medical assistance for dying for people with mental illness alone would be stopped. That would be reversed. And so it's a really crucial bill at a really crucial moment. We're just months away from that deadline of March 2024.
Yeah, definitely. It's coming upon us quickly. What have you been hearing from MPs on this issue?
There's MPs right across the political spectrum from all four parties who are having reservations about opening up MAID for medical illness alone. So this is not just one party or two parties. This seems to be some concern right across the board. And even from some people who are supporting MAID generally, euthanasia generally, they're concerned that opening up for mental illness, we're just not ready. And they're even asking questions about whether it ever should be opened up to people with mental illness alone. So there seems to be concern right across the spectrum.
Okay, and so you're hearing from people in the Liberal Party, NDP, Bloc MPs as well, Bloc Québécois?
Yes, we've heard anecdotal evidence that there's concerns right across, yes, from all parties.
Okay, interesting.
Not necessarily at the party platform levels or the official party stances, but MPs from all parties, we've heard stories that they are saying, yes, we are very concerned about this going forward.
Okay, and tomorrow, October 17th, there's supposed to be a vote. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, October 18th tomorrow.
18th, sorry. Today's the 17th, isn't it?
Today is the 17th. Yeah, so if this vote goes forward, this is at the second reading of the bill. So the first reading has already gone through. That just the bill is just introduced. That the second reading, if this is passed, that second reading, that means that the bill then goes to committee. And so then there's various committees that meet and begin to assess the bill and bring back forward recommendations, perhaps to changes to the bill. But if the bill does pass the second reading vote, that would be a good sign, because that means that Parliament is seriously taking reference of what's going on and saying, well, we need to really talk about whether this is in fact a good thing for us to be going ahead with as a nation.
Interesting. Okay, so if Bill C-314 fails to pass, then like you were saying, it'll move on to that parliamentary committee for study, right?
No, if the bill fails to pass tomorrow, so this is a bill that actually says stop MAID for mental illness in March. If the bill fails the second reading, fails to pass the second reading, the bill is dead. And then therefore at that point, we can just presume that as of March 2024, MAID for mental illness will take effect.
So will this go to Senate yet as well? Could they amend the bill to stop that mental illness eligibility if this continues on down the road?
So if this bill passes the second reading, it will go to committee, and then it has to be voted by Parliament, by the House of Commons. If it's passed at the House of Commons, then it would go to Senate for the next level of approval. So you got to think about it. Remember that this bill is actually a bill to stop MAID for mental illness. This is not a bill to have mental illness availability for MAID for mental illness. That's already law. It's already law that people can, as of March, apply for euthanasia for mental illness alone. This bill is trying to stop that, right? If the bill passes, that's a success in that regard. It will stop MAID for mental illness.
What are the proponents of MAID saying? Why do they believe that it's a positive thing for individuals to qualify for MAID just based solely on mental illness alone?
Right. Well, there's there's kind of two lines of thought there. I think that most of the proponents would be saying, on the one hand, people are autonomous individuals and should be making choices about their own life. So I think it's really setting up kind of a contrast between a worldview that says individuals have full autonomy over their life and their death, versus many other people like the EFC who are saying all lives are sacred. All people, all individuals are made in God's image. All people are loved by God. And it's really not up to us to make a decision about our own death. We just see that as kind of the fundamental difference between the two. The bill, the mental illness was actually raised as a possibility by some proponents because they saw it as discriminatory, not being able to access euthanasia on the basis of mental illness. And so that was the original challenge, was that it was a discriminatory thing. So that from a legal perspective, that's what they were talking about. Okay. Of course, there's probably other views other than that, but I think those would be kind of the fundamental views from the proponents.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, so what kind of feedback then are you hearing from physicians, if any? Are they supportive or against MAID based solely on mental illness?
Well, of course, like with all things, there's a mixture of opinion. Just like the general population, there's those who are for and those who are against. But we are actually hearing quite a bit of reservation, especially amongst the mental health and psychiatric communities, and saying, number one, even from some of the psychiatrists and specialists, mental health specialists, who are actually in favor of MAID in kind of a general kind of way, are expressing serious reservation about whether this is a way forward. The former head of the Canadian Psychiatric Association actually put out an open letter to MPs, and although he is in favor of MAID in sort of in principle, he's seriously opposed to MAID for mental illness, saying that it will target vulnerable people. When people have various types of mental illness, this is precisely at the time when they need help, and offering MAID as a solution to a mental illness seems completely wrong-headed. And this is coming from the head of the Canadian Psychiatric Association.
Fascinating. So if Bill C-314, if this doesn't pass tomorrow and it continues on into the spring and it becomes a thing, if somebody wanted to, take part in MAID and they have mental illness, are there certain qualifications in terms of like, well, you need, a psychiatric evaluation or this or that? Do you know anything about that, David?
Yes. So the safeguards, there really are very few, if any, safeguards left. And this is part of the alarm that the psychiatric community is actually raising, psychiatric and mental health communities, because there really are no safeguards. If someone goes, for example, to a general physician, a family doctor with mental illness and requests this, there does need to be some kind of assessment with the person, with not necessarily with a psychiatrist or a psychologist, but just someone, a mental health specialist. And if that mental health specialist actually okayed that request, that person could be eligible then for MAID within 90 days of the request. So within 90 days they can. So what we're really pointing out is that in so many cases with mental health issues, even to get an appointment with a specialist is difficult in Canada right now. There's wait lists of a year and more than a year just to get into mental health specialists. And when you consider that someone who's full of anxiety or depression or suicidal ideation could go to a doctor and have a preliminary assessment and be approved for MAID within 90 days.
3 months, as opposed to the long wait list of trying to get in to see a counselor.
Exactly. Oh. And that points to the vulnerability of many people and how vulnerable people will be who are desperate for some help, perhaps can't get the help either because they just have no access, and that's a significant problem. And for many people who don't have insurance, sometimes people don't even have additional insurance to cover some of the extra specialties that are required. So we feel that MAID for mental illness is targeting vulnerable people.
Oh, absolutely. What are you hearing from organizations that work with and assist those with mental illness? Are they concerned that this will place them in a vulnerable position? I mean, they are so vulnerable.
Yes. So in particularly, the EFC has worked, especially with the Christian Medical and Dental Association. We've worked with disability groups and mental health groups. And again, although it's not unanimous across the board, there are significant sectors of the Canadian population who are opposed to the idea of offering euthanasia for mental illness. The EFC just did some polling ourselves, some national polling recently, and we discovered that well into 60% of Canadians agree that even if MAID for mental illness were to be made available, it should be only as a very last resort after all therapeutic options have been exhausted. In Netherlands, for example, where euthanasia is also legal, a physician's not able to provide euthanasia for a patient who requests this until they are convinced that they have exhausted all of the mental health therapies. That is not the case in the Canadian situation. There's no requirement for a person to receive mental health therapy. There's no requirement to show that they've exhausted the mental health therapies. All they have to do is qualify by someone who signs off and says that yes, they have a mental health condition.
Yeah. Oh, it's scary. So, David, if a viewer is concerned about this, what can they do? Is it still helpful to send letters or make phone calls to your MP?
Absolutely. Given the fact that the vote is tomorrow on Bill 314 for the second reading, that it's important to have that second reading passed. And so letters are probably going to be a little bit slow at this point, but you can email and you can phone your MP. And even if you don't get a personal phone call with your MP, you can leave a message on the recording machine, and that does count. They listen to those messages. And a phone call means a lot coming into an MP's office. So I would recommend viewers who are concerned, they should call their MP, leave a message. If they get to talk to the MP, wonderful. Or at the very least, send an email and ask them to support Bill 314.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and I understand that the EFC is encouraging churches across Canada to join together this Sunday, October 22nd, to pray about the issue, right?
Yes, we've launched a campaign. It's called Before It's Too Late campaign, and we've been encouraging churches and congregations across the country to set aside a little bit of time on their services on October 22nd. We've got some PowerPoints and some videos that churches can use on our website, even to take 7 minutes out of their service and just take some concerted time to pray about this. We do believe that God still hears and still can answer our prayers.
Okay. Well, David, we thank you so much for being with us today and sharing your knowledge about all of this. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having us.
Issues like homelessness and human trafficking have never been more evident than they are today. A church in Alberta has taken on the challenge to help with these issues in a big way. Joining me now is Jen Tribble, the Executive Director at My City Care. She's a pastor and a figure leading the way to a brighter future. Jen, thanks so much for joining me today. Great to have you on.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Okay, so you are the executive director of a ministry called My City Care. Can you maybe explain to us what this is?
Sure. So My City Care is a local program that came out of Parallel Church back in 2016. And since then, it's been rapidly growing and expanding across our province and into other provinces. We're now in 10 different locations serving many communities, which has been amazing. We focus on different programs around different issues such as food, clothing, housing, social justice, like you mentioned, with human trafficking, health, and anything where there's gaps or different needs in the community that we're just willing to come in and help find solutions and be a part of addressing the problem.
That's incredible. So it's been around 7 years, which that's gone so fast because it feels like it's just been a few years. And you said out of Parallel Church, the one out of Lethbridge, right?
Yes.
Okay. So which 10 communities has it spread to?
Yeah, so we have different communities. So we have Lethbridge, we have Claresholm, Okotoks, Lloydminster, we're in Taber, we're also in Penticton, BC. We're moving rapidly into Saskatchewan, which is really exciting. We have different church partners here in Lethbridge, so we're partnering with a few different churches here. So we're in all those communities, but out of those communities, we're serving the greater population.
Yeah, definitely. So how does it help address food insecurity among local families and vulnerable individuals within all these communities?
Yeah, so every community is a little bit different, and we kind of come in with an open hand and say, how can we help and how can we come alongside the local community there? So in Lethbridge in particular, we help with different things like food lunch programs. We do a You Pick pantry out of our office where families can come in and kind of pick what they need, because everyone's needs are a little bit different, especially culturally. We have a lot of newcomer families here in Lethbridge, specifically, and so they can't eat certain foods. So we tend to kind of make it a little bit more user friendly and let them pick the things that they need or are most relative to them and their dietary needs. We also help out with mobile food programs, lunches that we give out to the homeless. There's quite a few different ways that we do it. Last year we handed out 80,000 meals, which was incredible.
That is incredible. Oh, that's amazing. I mean, on the one hand, congratulations, but on the other hand, it's so sad that it is a need that has to be filled. Speaking of which, can you maybe share any stories or testimonials that highlight the positive outcome of this outreach?
Yeah, we just actually came through a really crazy season. So we just finished our Step the Bus initiative, and across our locations, we served over 3,500 kids. 1,000 of those being in Lethbridge, Alberta here, and then the rest of them across the province. But it was a really big need. We had a lot of families come in to access things like school supplies and shoes and coats, winter boots, things like that. A lot of families who even messaged us personally after the event and were like, we couldn't have done this without you guys. Thank you so much for your support. There's a lot of families who have messaged us and been like, I don't know what we would have done without you guys. So it's been a really big season for, I think, families getting those extra expenses when it comes to times like back to school and Christmas. We see that.
And we're getting into that season right now, aren't we? That festive season where the budget seems to get even tighter. So I'm sure that the need is going to go up very, very soon. But Jen, your mission in life seems to be dedicated to helping people. So another aspect of My City Care is finding solutions for human trafficking. So that ministry is called Not for Sale, right?
Yes. So we have a ministry that we partner with called Not for Sale. It also has been an organization that's birthed out of our church, and it's been around for even longer than My City Care. But yeah, its mission is to help eradicate human trafficking, which is a huge need, not just in Canada, but around the world.
Yeah, it really is. And it seems to be worse now than ever before. And it's hard to believe that. But what is the biggest misconception about human trafficking today?
I think one of the biggest misconceptions we see is that a lot of people think that it is just overseas and that it doesn't happen in your own backyard, when we see the effects of that even daily in our office here in Lethbridge. And so we see a lot of people that are coming in that are accessing services that also might be in situations that are difficult for them to bring forward or discuss. And so part of our job is to build relationships with them through our office and just make it a safe place where they can connect with people.
Mm-hmm. So you're saying it happens like right here in these smaller communities. Oh, that's incredible. I know that you also, as well as making a difference in the community, you go, outreach as well. So I believe your group offers outreach in other countries, right? So I saw on your website you do missions in Mexico.
Yes, that actually is a part of our Not for Sale ministry as well.
Yeah, interesting. I know that people can kind of sign up to go do missions for that. If you do a mission, what does that look like?
What we typically have done in the past is we would take a team, and so we do training and different types of training with our teams here, and then we will take them down, and it's usually very specialized, and yeah, it's an amazing experience.
Mm-hmm. Okay. What about locally? How do you help somebody that comes in and who is a victim of this or has seen something? For sure. What we'll do is usually connect them to the appropriate services. So we have amazing agencies within Lethbridge, like the Sexual Assault Center. We have different connections through the police department. And so if somebody does come in, we'll get them the appropriate supports that are relative to them. Mm-hmm. We tend to be a bridge builder. Okay, perfect. Can you maybe share any personal stories that have come out of working to free these children and these women? I would say when it comes to in Canada and stuff, a lot of the situations are very interwoven. So they're very complex situations. They're not like they're going to come in and express that they're in a situation like that. A lot of the times the people that come through the doors are dealing with multiple things such as poverty and addictions and homelessness. And so they're very vulnerable in those situations. And sometimes because of the nature of it and the manipulation and deception that goes into that, they don't necessarily recognize that could be a situation that they're in. So a lot of the times we really work on that relationship piece and building trust and a safe place where they can connect with different members of our team. And then if they do come forward, then we can help them report it or get them connected through the different agencies and channels that would be the best route for them. But because it's so unique in every situation, that pathway looks different. And so we might connect them right away into a rehab, or we might connect them into a place where they can have safe shelter kind of thing. So it's very different and unique to the individual and what they're going through and their needs that are
unique to them.
Mm-hmm. I would imagine it's very psychological too, because these people are in bondage. And do you find that, I would imagine it's not easy for somebody to come forward. They're probably terrified, for one thing. Does this usually happen with the person coming to you, or is it usually done through somebody else, that somebody is aware that something is going on and you guys go in and intervene? Or do you get law enforcement involved if that's the case?
It would most likely be law enforcement in those types of situations. Like we in our office are more on the bridge building and relationship building side. And then so we would hand them over to, like I said, the appropriate resources that can help and take the next steps, whether they want to press charges or they want to just be in a safe situation. It really does vary. And sometimes like the part that we play is the part where we just connect them to the appropriate places for them, especially in Canada, right? Because the systems here are so different.
So Jen, how can the average person help to put an end to something like this, to human trafficking?
Yeah, I think there's lots of very like practical ways that you can help. Like one of the biggest things that we can do is educate the public about it and let people know that this isn't just something that happens overseas, like it happens in our neighborhoods, in our schools, in our backyards. So one of the things that you can do is spread awareness of what to look for and the signs of human trafficking. And it's not to cause fear, it's just to bring awareness to it and the fact that there might be people that are going through this and they don't recognize it as human trafficking. Like I was saying, because of the deception and the manipulation around it, sometimes it's difficult to recognize. One of the other things you can do is donate. You can donate your time. You could donate resources that help go into programs that are fighting human trafficking, that are creating safe spaces in the community for people to bring their story forward. That's really important. And so there's lots of organizations that are dealing with situations like this, but they're just like their part is to create a safe space and to build trust and relationships, right? There's lots of frontline organizations that are working with vulnerable populations who, even if they aren't being trafficked, they're at risk of being trafficked. So the more places that we have that are safe and approachable for people with those kinds of situations, the better. So donating your time, volunteering at local organizations that deal with vulnerable populations is incredible. You can give directly to My City Care, Not for Sale online. So you can go onto the websites and make a direct donation to those places. And yeah, there's very practical ways that we can fight it locally. The biggest thing we can do is educate and let families know what to look for, educate our kids, have safety online. That's a big one because like a lot of the times, like a lot of times our kids and victims are approached online. So having good online safety is really important.
That's a huge one. Yes.
As parents, being really aware of that. And yeah, just having those safeguards in place.
Okay. No, that's interesting that you brought that up. You mentioned looking for the signs. What are these signs that we're supposed to be looking for?
Yeah. So I think some of the things that they usually that are kind of the telltale signs are if people are isolating from their friends and family. That's a big one. So if you're seeing changes in how they approach life, they're isolating. Sometimes they might be carrying multiple phones. That's a big one. Being away and not knowing where they are, or maybe they will know where they are, but if you ask them, sometimes their stories don't add up. Any bruising or tattoos sometimes can be an indicator, but like a big one, I think big one to watch for is isolation, multiple cell phones. As a parent, I think you know when something's off with your children and keeping an eye on those social media platforms and different things and how they're communicating with their friends and family. And yeah, isolation is a really big one.
Okay, no, interesting. Thank you for bringing that up. I'll switch things over to you a little bit more personally. So you and your husband, Tim, head up online pastoring for Parallel Church, which currently has campuses here in Lethbridge, as well as Clare's Home, Lloydminster, Taber, and Okotoks, right? So both of these ministries, Not for Sale and My City Care, run out of Parallel, right? So how did you and your husband get involved in this type of ministry?
Yeah, we moved here from Penticton, BC, just over like 10 years ago. And we were a part of a church there, and we ended up going to a conference in Edmonton, and we were looking for a change in our life, and we ended up meeting some pastors actually from the church here, and they invited us to come down one Sunday, and we fell in love with it and the vision of the church, and we decided 6 months later we packed up and moved, and And we were here.
Interesting. Well, Penticton's such a beautiful area. It would have been hard to leave. So obviously you had a big intrinsic motivator there to make you jump over. That's amazing. You mentioned Parallel Church. So what are some of the other missions that Parallel Church is focused on right now?
Yeah, we are really, really focused on love and impacting our community. So My City Care is a huge focus of Parallel Church. We also are really focused on building community in smaller groups. So right now we're doing a lot with our house parties and connecting people into smaller groups because it's difficult sometimes to make friends in a big service on a Sunday. But if you can meet in homes and build relationship and have community, people tend to really thrive in that kind of environment. So we're really big on connecting people into homes and getting them connected and meeting friends. And so that's a big focus right now. Like I said, Not for Sale is another one of our ministries. We have kids ministry and youth ministry, and our youth ministry is a really fun time for anyone who's got teenagers and they're looking for something for them to do. We've got a solution for them.
Amazing. Great little plug for your church there, Jen. It's amazing. Well, thanks for your time today. I really commend you on the work that you're doing in the community.
Thank you so much.
Of course. Jen Tribble is the executive director of My City Care and a pastor at Parallel Church. I'm Jeanette Roche on behalf of all of us here at Bridge City News. Thanks so much for watching.